Hi, I'm JY Aubone, and you're listening to the Functional Tennis Podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Functional Tennis Podcast. I'm Fabio Molla, your host. Super excited to be back and to be speaking to JY Aubone. JY tells a great tennis story. He's so passionate about tennis. He was a great junior, then he went to play college tennis, and after college tennis, he decided he was going to get a job. He's working in finance, earning good money, had good potential for his future financially, but decided he wanted to get back into tennis, gave that a go, and eventually got into coaching. He spent 4 years working with Reilly Opelka until recently, until he had a baby. His wife did, and he now is back at home. So he tells us how he's managing things now that he's at home and not traveling. So, really interesting story, and you can really see JY's passion for the game. Before we get started, a shout out to Slinger Bag, our podcast sponsors. They make the awesome portable ball machine, the Slinger Bag. They've recently updated their website, slingerbag.com. Head over there to check it out. They have some tips and tricks from their expert level of coaches there. So it really shows you how to get the most out of your Slinger Bag. Check that out. And other than that, we, for the month of March, have included with every order on our store on functionaltennis.com a Halo Hydration pack, which includes some hydration packs which you use on and off the court. They have the right electrolytes, minerals, vitamins that you need to be at your best when you compete. Let's get straight into our chat with JY. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you do, by the way, tap the like button, tap the subscribe button, share it with your friends in the tennis community. It really means a lot to us, helps us grow, and every one of them means a lot. So let's go. Hi, JY. Welcome to the Functional Tennis Podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Fabio. How are you?
Absolutely amazing. The summer, well, it's early summer here. It's spring, but the days are longer, more sunshine. You can start playing a bit of tennis outdoors. So all good. Tell us, where are you?
So I live in Atlanta, but right now I'm in Miami visiting family. The newborn baby just had his shots a couple of days ago. So as soon as he got his shots to give us the all clear to see family and friends, we went boom, straight back to Miami because that's where our family's from.
Nice. And any tennis like work in Miami at all?
So not on court, but I do have an online website where I can work with players virtually. Watching their matches, giving them feedback. So I am doing that. So from here,
Okay,
so that
we'll get to more of that in a while. But first of all, you mentioned Atlanta. I know a few Irish guys have trained over there. Uh, I think you know Joe Riley. You're gonna, or Joe Dwyer, not Joe
yeah,
Riley. I'm not sure. James McGee, he did a bit
of
of
course I know
training there.
James. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
James was a good friend of mine. Was there Richie Martin? Does he ring any bells?
Rich, I saw Richie a couple of days before I came here. So Richie, yeah, longtime friend, also one of my coaches. So I work with both Joey and Richie at some point. Joey longer for I spent a couple of years with him, but yeah, know the whole Irish crew there.
And Julian Bradley, does he ring any
Of
bells?
Julian, of course, yeah. When Julian came down to Atlanta, started working with Joey, we would practice together. So of course,
Okay, well, look, Joe Dwyer has been on the podcast. We actually did a repeat episode with him. It's one of the more popular ones. His stories are great. He's a great storyteller.
yeah.
He's been with a few players and he is mad in a good way. He's just mad. But tell us about Joe. Maybe if people haven't listened to that episode, they should go back. I'm actually going to ask Joe, is back in Ireland now. I'm going to ask him to come back on the podcast soon, see what else he's been up to. But if they haven't listened to that episode, why, JY, should people listen to Joe?
Joe's the reason I'm actually still in tennis. I'll give him that credit. Out of every coach I've worked with, there's something I picked up from everybody, but the one thing that I got from him is passion for the sport of tennis. I've never been around someone who was so happy on the tennis court, loved everything about it, loved teaching the game, loved feeling every shot. Just taught me how to enjoy literally just hitting every type of tennis ball in every different way. His energy on a daily basis is unmatched by anyone I've ever been around, but in a good way. I mean, it's always in a good way. It's incredible. So he just infects you with this love of the game of tennis that no other coach had brought to me, and his storytelling is just Gosh, it's fun. I won't say the story, but there was one time he was so passionate about his story, and I was just like, "You got to be kidding me!" And then about like 10 minutes after, he's like, "No, I was just kidding. That one was a lie. He just that was the one time he got me because he knew like I was just so into all his stories." So yeah, no, he's if you want to listen to someone who just loves the game, that's the one to listen to.
Yeah, can't wait to bring him back on. So yeah, I'm not sure what episode it is, but just search for Joe Dwyer, and it will pop up. But tell me, JY, where did tennis start for you, and what was your early tennis journey like?
So I started tennis at 2 years old. Both my parents played tennis professionally. So naturally, when my dad had an academy, and my mom was there as well. So naturally, got to bring the kids somewhere. So they brought me over to the tennis courts and started playing at the age of 2, and that's how I got into it. I mean, my whole family played tennis, uncles, grandparents, everyone. They're all from Argentina. Tennis was big back there, still is. So they got me into the game.
And what sort of ranking did they reach?
So my mom only played 1 year fully, and then she stopped playing to travel with my dad all the time. My dad got to top 100 singles doubles, and he played all the slams. So yeah, he had a successful career. Money was very different, but as far as results and I mean, if he would have been playing right now, the kind of money it would have been, more successful for sure.
Yeah, I know things are changed. Things have changed. And tell me, so your junior days, you stuck playing tennis. You played a few junior tournaments. Did you travel? What went on
Oh,
there?
I did it all. I only played tennis as far as a sport or officially. I played other sports for fun with friends, but tennis was the only thing I did. I traveled all the tournaments in the States, which there's a lot of, and you can travel. I mean, it's a pretty big country, so you can travel far. As soon as I got to high school, I think 14 turning 15, my goal was always to be like my mom, my dad. I wanted to play pro, so that was the only thing I cared about. College tennis wasn't even, I didn't even think about it. So as soon as I got the chance to homeschool and travel and start playing ITFs and get my ranking up, I did that. At 15, I was in South America playing all those tournaments there. Um, did the same thing at 16, played in Europe. I mean, I didn't do enough in Europe, but I tried. And then I think my ITF ranking got to about 150 before I started playing futures and stuff like that to see if I could go pro. So yeah, I did it all that. Played Junior Davis Cup. I fortunately got a wild card in Junior U.S. Open. Had that experience, which was great. And I mean, and nationally, I did well. I mean, I think it was top 5 or top 10 in every division on the way up.
And who's on your junior Davis Cup team?
So the qualifier was me, Dylan Arnold, who went to play college tennis, didn't play pro after, and Donald Young. Donald Young was on that
Okay.
team, and the then the team that went to go play in Spain for like the final groups was me, Marcus Fugate, and Spencer Vagosen, and none of us really had successful pro careers. But I mean, that just shows how tough. I mean, though Potro was playing, that was one of the players I was playing. I mean, that age group was tough. We played
What
Cilic. I remember Cilic was the team that took us down.
and what was the Potro like as a young kid?
Same as an adult, just nice to everybody, just always in a good mood. But the one thing that always stuck out to me was that even at that age, just not afraid to play anybody. Felt like he could beat any player on the court any day of the week. But just a nice guy overall to everybody.
And did he have a hammer forehand back then?
No. So to me, that developed later. I always felt like his backhand was way better in juniors than his forehand. But the interesting part was, so he wasn't that tall when he was a junior. He's a little taller, but within normal. So I mean, he developed great movement, great footwork, could fly around the court just like a player who's 6 feet tall. So that when he got to be that height, I mean, he already had his movement developed because I mean, he got to be a lot taller than even a lot of us expected.
Nice. And what about Chilich?
Chilich, man, same thing. He was a little bit bigger at that time. Definitely big serve, big forehand. and a good mover as well. I think for a lot of these European and South American, I think even if you were a little tall, like it wasn't like, okay, we're just going to develop serve and forehand and that's it. You're just going to be this power hitter. I mean, they still grew up on clay courts. They learned how to move. They learned how to slide. They learned how to hit drop shots. There was an all around development where, I think sometimes when you're in the States here, you kind of get to be a bigger player. It's all right, let's hammer it away and
Yeah.
just bomb people away. And I think that's the where I think now they've started to play a lot more on clay courts in the country here with juniors, just to try to develop that overall game as well.
Nice. It is important. And just just staying at that age, or maybe even a few years younger, you say your parents were both players then in the academy, and was there pressure from them for you to play, or was it your own decision you wanted to play?
I never felt pressure from them. Um, I wouldn't say I looked to play other organizational sports either. I think I played a lot of that with my friends and stuff. I mean, I genuinely loved playing tennis. There were, of course, times where, you know, and I try to give parents this experience where, I mean, I was all in on tennis 5, 6 days a week, playing tournaments and everything. I mean, I think at the age of 12, I quit for a month. I think later on, I quit again. 18, I quit again. I mean, there was always moments where I'm like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. But I always came back. And it's not like I went to another sport and said, it's because I want to play basketball or something. I just needed a break. And that's it. And as soon as I got that break and I just saw some other people playing some tennis, I'm like, I kind of want to hit that forehand again because I love just hitting forehands as hard as I could whenever I got it. So, yeah, I love that feeling. I love that feeling of playing on the court. I was big into just figuring things out and try to beat people different ways. I mean, I think, my dad being Argentinian and my mom as well, growing up on a clay court, they taught me the slice, the drop shot, the angles. They taught me it all around game so that when I love trying to beat people in different ways and mess with them to see how I could break them down. So yeah, no, and you know, that was it for me.
And what happened then? Oh, you end of your junior days, you start playing a few futures. What was the next step?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird dynamic when I look back. So yeah, I got to the point where I was close to making qualities of slams. So I'm like, okay, great. Maybe I can. This is the next step. But then I just couldn't make that next jump. I guess I put too much pressure on myself to to make it into main draws of slams, and I started losing every ITF match possible. I mean, it was a joke. I think like I haven't gone back and checked this, but my memory tells me I lost close to like 12 first rounds in a row. I couldn't win a match when it counted. So, but then I was playing futures, and this is around 17 years old. But then I'm playing futures, and I'm qualifying. And like I was beating guys, maybe flying around qualities that are maybe 800, 900 in the world, 1,000. So, these guys are better than some of the junior players I'm losing to. So I think, okay, well, who cares about juniors? I want to play pro anyway. But the thing is, I it to I still never got that 1 point, even in juniors. So because that's how tough it is. I mean, qualifying is one thing, but to then go pro, I mean, you need to be ranked pretty high to skip college. So you don't go pro if you're ranked like 1,000. So and I just couldn't make that next jump. So that's when I realized fortunately I was honest with myself and my parents let me make the decision. And I said, yeah, I think I need to go to college. Like I don't think I'm good enough to go pro right now. And
Yeah.
that's what I did to try to take my game to the next level.
And where did you go to university?
I went to Florida State University, proud Seminole.
And how many years were you there? How did that go? Did you try play tennis after there?
Yeah, a lot of interesting times. So I played 4 years, but I almost left after my second and third year because after I had a really good second year. So I picked up my first 2 points after my freshman year. So, but it was only 2 points, because I tried to play every summer. But it wasn't because I was trying to go pro. It was more like, well, just keep playing, keep developing, do something in the summer, stay fit, and get ready for the next season. Picked up 2 points, great. Went back to my sophomore season. I had a great sophomore season. I think I got top 10. I think set 8, 9. I'm not sure what I got to, but I got pretty highly ranked in college. And then I had a great summer where, you know, I beat a player, Nathan Healy, my first tournament. And it's just so funny how it worked. So I'll try to keep this short, but I beat Nathan Healy, my first future that I played out of college. He was like 300 in the world at that time. So I was like, oh, wow, I just beat a guy 300. And then I had a 15-year-old kid second round. So I'm like, I'm already looking at quarterfinals, right? I get smashed. I was so humbled to this 15-year-old kid. And now looking back, that 15-year-old kid was Dennis Kudla, who
Oh
Dennis,
wow.
went straight pro, got to 60 in the world. I mean, great player, still playing there right now. So it's funny how that worked out. But then I went semis, won a future, and finals 3 weeks in a row. So, and then by the time the summer finished, I got a wild card into the qualifying of the U.S. Open. I won my first round. I lost a pretty good second round to the guy who actually ended up qualifying, Bjorn. I hope to say his last name well, Bjorn Fow or Bjorn Powell. And he
Okay.
ended up playing Nadal first round.
Wow.
So I was like, oh man, that would have been a cool experience. But anyways, so I finished the U.S. Open, and I'm the highest ranked collegiate player professionally. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm at the U.S. Open. I got that vibe. Everyone's around me. And the coach I was working with at the time was there. And I was literally so close to just going pro right there because, I mean, I felt like I need to roll with this. My game's in the right place. My mind's in the right place. I've got a coach around me. I've got a lot of support. And when you have your confidence high like that, you want to try to ride it. And I'm like, look, before I make this decision, let me go back to college. I mean, let me go back home. Let me just take one day. And classes were starting in 2 days, and I had not signed up for classes. So even my coaches were waiting for me, like, are you coming back? So I came back, and I decided for whatever reason, I just said, look, I don't think I'm quite ready. Like I loved college. I loved being around my team. I loved having friends, which is something that I struggled with in juniors. Once I started homeschooling, I just didn't have many friends. My friends were at the tennis tournaments. So when I came home, I wouldn't say like I had a great social life. So I just loved that environment. I was around my friends every day. I was living with my friends, but still practicing hard, training hard. So I'm like, look, just not yet. So let me go back to college, and I'm like, let me see if I can win NCAA's. There's a U.S. Open wild card on the line. I'm the highest ranked professional player playing college tennis, so there's a good chance like I can have an even better year and really set myself up for maybe some sponsorships, wild cards, everything after my junior year. Well, I started to have a terrible junior year because I put all this pressure on myself, and I really struggled that year. I was able to get it together halfway through the year, but the first part of the year was I put so much pressure on myself. Nothing by my coaches, nothing by my parents. I literally did it to myself because I felt like my dream was so close to like playing pro, and I want to do everything so perfect. I cut out every bad meal. Like I really limited how I went out in college, and it was actually the worst thing that happened to me. So the more I did off the court to be perfect, the worse I played on the court. I mean, it was just the way I worked. So then, come once the season finishes, I'm like, well, maybe I'm going pro. And I played two tournaments. I did terribly, and I just said, that's it. I'm done. I'm going back to college. Like I burned myself out
Mm.
trying to go pro, and I put so much pressure on myself in the wrong way rather than just kind of just letting it be a natural development of my game. I kind of forced it. I wanted it too much, and went back to college, finished up, and I was just so burnt out with tennis with what I did to myself. Um, that's where I put the rackets away in the closet, and where I told you prior, where I went to go work in finance for 2 years.
Yeah. So you just, how was that 2 years in finance? Did you realize the end of it? This is not for me.
So my first job I actually liked. It's just a small financial firm in Tallahassee. Great to get my feet wet, just get started. I was working to be a financial advisor. And then after about 8 months there, I got an offer to work at Morgan Stanley in Miami in the private wealth management office, which is in the Latin American division. So at the time, it was their second largest division. And by the time I was there a few months in, it ended up being the largest division in the bank, with assets under management. So, I was working on my progression towards working for a hedge fund. But so when I got offered the job, I was like, of course I want to take it. I want to get to a hedge fund. This is the next step. Boom, went to Miami. And within a week there, I was like, this isn't for me. But the thing is, I'm not going to quit at that point because I made a commitment to them. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to go at least a full year because that's the right thing to do. And I think one of the things I learned is you're never quite sure of what job you just took up until about 6 months in anyway. So I just said, look, just see what you can do, see what happens. And just the environment just wasn't for me. I mean, I still love stocks. I still love trading. I was looking at the markets this morning before I jumped on here. I still love that stuff, but the environment and of what I was doing, that wasn't for me. So the stress was too much. I struggled to handle it. And after about about 14 months in, and I'm watching people playing at the French Open that I played in college and beat them, and I see other guys moving up the ranks, and here I am, 20 extra pounds sitting in the office, two computer screens in front of me, and I'm just like, you know what, if I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life, I want to at least know what it was like to have been a professional tennis player.
Nice.
And it wasn't about at that point, it wasn't like, oh, I think I can make it to a Grand Slam. That wasn't why I was doing it. And it's funny because one of my bosses even said when I told him I was leaving to go play professional tennis again, man, I hadn't played tennis in like 2 years. So I just hit some balls with friends, but that's it.
And
And
wait, just going to interrupt you there, JY. You're in Miami, like the home of tennis in the States, where everybody plays tennis. All the American pros play there at some stage. All the coaches are there, the academies there. Were you not interested in checking out the academies, playing a bit there at all?
when I was working down there,
Yeah.
it was impossible because I was in the office from 8:15 a.m. to 7 p.m. Those are my hours. So I'm just so tired at the end of the day. I mean, I'm actually trying to get to bed as soon as possible just so I can wake up and have some sort of mental energy for the next day. So the last thing on my mind was tennis. All I wanted to do was just try to relax, take a break, and be happy. So yeah, the last thing on my mind was tennis. But just watching more tennis. A lot of people in the office were big tennis fans, so we had every slam was on the TV in the office, and everyone's watching and following it. So I stayed interested in the game, but I didn't even have the time or energy to think
Mm.
about playing. Um, about 8 months into that job at Morgan Stanley, I went to go play with one of my old college teammates who was at an academy at Nick Saviano. No, not Nick Saviano. It was Harold Solomon's in Fort Lauderdale. I went to hit with him, and I'm like, wow, this was fun. But didn't think much of it. Then I played with a friend of mine who came down from a trip, and he stayed at my place, an old roommate of mine. I played tennis with him, and I was like, well, this was fun. And so I was like, I'm enjoying this a lot more than what I'm doing, or at least I'm finding more happiness. So when I told my bosses I was leaving, I said, "Look, he told me I won't say his name, but he was right with what he said. He's like, financially, you're making the dumbest mistake of your entire life because, yeah, I mean, to go play professional tennis, we all know there's no money unless you make it into the slams. So
Mm.
and the path you're on in finance, once you're a couple years in, you're going to be doing pretty well. And I said, look, this isn't about that. I know that's a dumb decision. I'm just trying to find some sense of happiness right now. And I think the tennis is the one thing that at the end of the day, when I was doing it right, I did find a lot of happiness in it. So I have to start there. And that's it.
And
And that's how
I
my
was going to
journey
say,
was back to tennis.
so you went playing a little bit.
Played 4 years. Did okay. I mean, when I compared to my work with Reilly, I don't think it was okay. I won, I think, 17 events, 14 of them in doubles, all futures that I won. I got to 450 singles, 280 doubles. Not bad in 4 years after not playing for 2 years. Would have been interesting to see what would have happened if I did go pro after my sophomore year when I was playing my best tennis for sure. But you know what? I'm happy where I am, and I'm happy how things turned out.
And when did you move into coaching then? What door opened up for you?
So as soon as I stopped playing, I was just kind of teaching, not sure of what direction I wanted to go. And that's when I started working with Reilly Opelka for the first time. He just needed a part-time coach because he had just turned pro but had a lot of injuries. He was working with Diego Moyano at the USTA, but Diego was also working with Tommy Paul. Tommy made a big jump to 300, so they were at two different rankings. So Reilly needed someone to work with him until he got back up. And so we started on a short-term basis for a month, but it wasn't a full-time job. And he was still playing future, so it's not like financially he was in a position to even offer me a full-time job. And then that's when I was still interviewing at some places trying to figure out what to do. And I got offered a full-time job at a country club in Atlanta, Cherokee Town Country Club, which is one of the nicest clubs, I've ever been around. And they had a program with over 100 kids, and they were looking for someone to run the junior program there. And nice salary, a lot of teaching hours, and pretty much guaranteed income. And I needed guaranteed income after putting myself in debt after playing for 4 years on the futures circuit. I was recently married, had a wife, so I said, Reilly, look, man, I'm sorry, but financially, like, I have to take this job. I need to pay off my debt. I need to do it as soon as possible. And he was like, yeah, no, I totally understand, not a problem. And so that was my start into tennis as far as coaching went. And
Um,
a year, go ahead.
no, fire away there.
So I was just going to say, about a year and a half into that, the program I was running ended up having over 150 kids, but it was a different kind of tennis at country club tennis. Now, I've never experienced it, so I'm glad I went and did it. I was working with a lot of adults as well and ladies clinics, and but again, there was something that just wasn't quite for me. I didn't quite pinpoint. I didn't know what it was, and that's when I got a call from the USTA asking to keep the story short. Reilly again. Now he had gotten up to about 120 in the world, but fallen back to 250. And get a call from Brian Bolin at the time was now running the USTA. And Brian Bolin gives me a call and he's like, hey, we're looking for a coach for Reilly, but this time it's full time. So we need you to travel about 30 weeks of the year, and financially you'll be okay. And you get to work with Reilly. And I knew how good Reilly could be at the time. And they said Jay Berger is going to be the coach that oversees everything. He's working with him at home, and he's going to be directing everything, but you're the guy that travels with at home. He's 250 in the world right now. We know this is a guy that can be top 10 in the world. What are you going to say? And I looked at my wife. I asked her if she was willing to go through more years of me traveling on tour. And her first question was like, look, as long as I can travel with you to some of these tournaments, I'll do it. Both Brian, Reilly, Jay, his agent, everyone said, yeah, not a problem. Boom, jumped in. And then that's how the last 4 years went.
Nice. Don't mind me asking, how old were you? You're still pretty young, like late 20s.
Yeah, geez, God. So we started 2018. You stop counting how old you are, the older you get. I realize that. So I'm 34 now. I just turned 30. So I
Okay.
was 29 when we started talking, and we just turned 30, I think. Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
I was young. There were still a lot of players that are older than me still playing. I
Yeah.
felt young when I first got on there. It was weird. Um, especially when you first started playing ATP events, and here's this young little 30, 31-year-old just showing up to these big events, and Federer and Nadal's walking around. I feel like this little kid here, but I have to
Yeah.
be a coach.
Well, yeah, but I suppose the younger coaches are a bit more. You see a lot more of them in the female game
Yeah.
rather than the male coaches seem to be a bit older. But what were the 4 years like working with Reilly, watching him rise to what, top 20? I'm not sure of his highest rank in 19, or do I have my notes here? Am I
Yeah, so
right
he's
saying that?
17 now. He's
Okay.
17 now, but the highest we got before I stopped in November was that he got to 19 last summer. So, I mean, it's such a great journey because we went from the challengers to the tour. He not only did I see him grow, I mean, he was 19 when we started. So I saw him change not just as a player, but as a person. I think the same goes for me. I mean, I was still growing up as a coach and learning things as a person, learning things from Jay, how to handle things, the support of the USTA, and just learning the ups and downs of the tour, learning what it's like to travel all over the world, going through some challengers, then the ATP Tour. I mean, it was an incredible journey but there were some great moments, some awful moments. Gosh, there were some really rough moments. We laugh about it with Reilly now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was just great to see the rise because then I got to see so much of the development that could still happen at that part of your game.
Well, we want to talk about your best moment and your worst moment. But before, maybe you can tell our audience and viewers who or what Jay Berger's credentials are, and he was working directly for the USTA at the time.
So not anymore. He had finished. I don't know if it was the summer prior, but not that long before. So Jay was head of USTA player development. He did that for quite a long time. He was top 10 player in the world. I think he got the number 6 in the world in singles as a player, head coach for the Olympics, assistant Davis Cup coach. He coached Jack Sock when Jack first got to 8 in the world. He was there for that run in Paris in the World Tour Finals. He worked for USTA for many more years. I mean, his credentials are not many more coaches have better credentials than what he does. So, and I've known Jay, because he was living in the Miami area for as long as I can remember. And so I knew Jay since I was 11, 12 years old. And when I grew up, I spent a lot of time with the USTA and the juniors as well. He was already working for them at that time. So for him to and then when I tried to go pro, Jay was running the USTA there. So to have him be the person overseeing everything that we were doing, I was like, it couldn't be any better. So, and I give the amount of things I've learned from him on how to manage everything. There's no way I would have lasted that long on my own. There's no way. I didn't have the experience. They took a chance on me, but I think I had no professional experience at that time. And that's just a fact. But they took a chance on me with knowing that Jay was running everything, and I was grateful for that opportunity.
So we'll start off. What was your toughest moment on the road over the 4 years with Reilly?
Toughest moment for sure was Panama City Challenger. That was not just that it was Panama City Challenge. There's just a lot of things. I mean, he had lost a couple matches in a row, I think, at that point. Um, he had match points, main draw with Fritz. He'd gotten a wild card. He had match points, first round, lost that match. We get to Panama City Challenger. I mean, it's just so hot and humid down there. And we tried to go down a couple days early just to try to get used to the heat and humidity. The courts were in awful condition. We couldn't find the showers at the tournament. There was one little room with one AC that all the players were crammed in. If you had to be careful sliding because there wasn't enough clay on the court, so sometimes you'd dig into the court and you'd get stuck. So you're pretty careful that you could really get hurt on some of those courts. I think Reilly ended up losing first round, but I remember I think that tournament ended up changing balls. They ran out of balls and they changed balls in the second round. I mean, it was just rough. It was rough. I mean, the tournament shuttle didn't have air conditioning on the way to the courts, so it was just so hot. None of the Ubers or cars there had air conditioning. It was just a tough experience because you get spoiled playing some of these tournaments and a lot of the tournaments in the States, and it was eye opening. So it was a tough experience, but it definitely made us appreciate going back. So I'll never forget that experience. We've had some other ones too. I mean, I think down 2 sets to love. Well, our trip to Australia 2020, right before COVID hit. I mean, we go to we go. That's a long flight to Australia.
Mm.
He had match points against Cuevas first round. This is when he's already top 50 in the world. match points against Cuevas first round, loses that. We go to Melbourne Australian Open. He's up 2-0, rain delay, then loses to Fognini. This was Fognini first round, loses in 5 sets, and that's how we go home. So those are just two memories that just really stick out.
And what sort of loser is he? Does he get over quick, or does he go quieter? Can you chat to him, or is the flight home complete silence? You sit down the back, and he's in first class.
No, he takes things remarkably well. Sometimes I was like Jay, I feel like he should be more upset, like because I take things pretty hard. I get over him at some point, but it's hard for me. And with him within 30, 45 minutes, sometimes even just 10 minutes, uh, he's over it. I mean, I think he does such a good job at not overthinking things and just having, the idea of what his long-term goal is and always has been. And not one match or one tournament really takes too much importance. So and we've always stressed that. We always said, like, look, it's just one match, one day, just learn from it. But even then, in the moment, it's so emotionally hard, and he just handles it so much better. Yeah, in that sense, he's great to be around after those losses. So just give
Nice.
him 20, 30 minutes, and it's out. It's over. It's gone. Move on.
High fives all around.
Yeah, no, it's impressive.
What was the your best memory?
Okay. Well, winning New York Open when you won it for the first time, I mean, getting your first title, that was a stressful final. So I remember he had match points earlier in that tiebreak to Braden Schnurr, and he makes a big first serve wide. Schnurr guesses right, rockets a return back, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he ends up, and it was crazy how he ended up winning it because I don't know what the final tiebreaker score was, but I think it was like 8-all. Schnurr thinks he hits an ace, and so at the time they're using this Fox challenge system. I don't know what it is. They use it in the States here, and so he hits an ace, and Riley's like, I'm just going to challenge it. It's close enough. But Schnurr hits the balls. All the balls come over to Reilly to serve. And it turns out that the thing is a little bit slow. Like Hawkeye is definitely faster on getting you the call back. So it turns out it was just barely out. And so all the balls have to go back. Schnurr has to go back. He has to go from return position to serve. I think he ends up double faulting. So he goes
What
from
happened?
up championship point to down championship point. Reilly serves, bang, ace, see you later. That roller coaster of a final was incredible. And also the semis, because he beat Isner in the semis in 3 tie breaks. I mean, 3 tie breaks is stressful enough with Isner just because you don't know when you're going to get a return.
I think
So, and
those I was going to say I think those two, Isner and Riley, have played more tie breaks between themselves than others have in their whole career.
yeah, no, and it's funny because I think they understand and they're not going to take it personally when I say this, but a lot of times I'll hear people like, "Oh, I can't wait to watch that match just to see like Cern's bombing away." I'm like, "Really? You want to watch that match? Or just get to the tiebreak, just show up at the breaker." But they did play once in Australia. The first time they played, they actually broke each other's serve. So
2009, 2019 was it? I
2019.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was in the tunnel going into the player area that time, and Isner just come off court into the tunnel. He took his rackets out of the bag. He was kind of hiding and started smashing them. He was pissed,
Yeah.
so pissed. I
So
was like, oh God, I better run. I don't want, he's going to come after me now if he sees me do that. But rackets came out of the bag and smash, smash. And I was like, whoa.
yeah,
So
he,
I
he
knew
was
there
a
was
little bit
fire that
on
day.
edge. He was a little bit on edge that match. I think for him that year, I mean, he typically hasn't had the best starts to the year. Where he had gone through a couple seasons where just and he would always I think he would always play Auckland and go play the Australian and just wasn't having great results. And look, it's like to go that long of a flight. You're a seeded player. You want to win a couple matches. So I think he had lost to. Pretty sure he had. If I'm not mistaken, he had lost to Fritz already in Auckland first round. So he comes and then it gets down to set, and you could see he was on edge and so those matches are stressful because you just don't know if you're going to get a chance, and you might not, and there's actually nothing you can do when you play these servers. So yeah, that was but so they did break each other's serve, but Isner broke first, but Reilly broke back.
Wow.
Isner served for that fourth set to go to the fifth set, and Reilly broke back and ended up winning in the fourth. My other favorite memory was probably the two happened to be last year was probably Rome, making the semis there, losing it down in the semis because I mean he had lost like 5-6 matches in a row at that point. We were off to a pretty rough start to the year, and now we're having to go in on clay, and in Rome. I mean, just in Europe, I mean, you can get some pretty cold weather even in the spring, kind of summerish time. It just comes, and then you got a really damn slow clay court. And we got pretty fortunate with some weather where we got beautiful weather that week. Nice, fast, bouncy Rome courts. I remember even one day he played his early match. I think he played Musetti early in the morning. But literally 30 minutes after the match finished, rain and cold kicked in. Like all the clouds came. It would have been a different match, because the court changes with that weather. So that was an incredible experience. The run in Toronto last year, that was incredible because not just making finals of a Masters, but the players he had to beat to get there. Kyrgios, Dimitrov, Lloyd Harris,
Tsitsipas.
Bautista Agut, Tsitsipas in the semis, losing that first set, coming back to win in three. That was incredible. And then my final memory before I talk a little too much is just when he got his first 5-set win when he beat Wawrinka in the second round of Wimbledon, 2019, 8-6 in the fifth, down 2-1. That was an incredible match.
Nice. So it's crazy, like just what you can do. You just don't know what's going to happen with these tennis players. Like they go on a bad run, they can change it around so quickly. But there is so many of the American players still don't really play the clay court season. They sort of stay home, don't they?
Yeah. If you go, I mean, really the best thing to go is you just go and you stay. But I think one of the things that happens with Americans is just traveling in Europe, the hotel rooms are a little bit different. You're far away from home. The food is different. And so I think Americans struggle to be there for 6-7 weeks in a row playing on a surface that they're already a little bit uncomfortable with. And like I said, I mean, you can have a warm summer or a warm spring, 'cause it is more springtime. So you can have a warm spring and it plays faster. You can play a more aggressive tennis. But then if you get some cold, rainy days, I mean, you are on a slow grind. And that's tough. And then you feel like you can't come back. And because you can't come back home and you can't take a break anywhere. I mean, what we've tried to do a couple times, because with Jay's experience and everything, we're like, no, you go and you train. You spend all the weeks there. You want to take a break, don't take a flight back, go somewhere and train. So we've gone to Monte Carlo. We've trained there. We've trained at Mouratoglou's and in Nice. We spent a couple days last year, which I thought was great with Reilly. Reilly sponsored Tim Van Leer, the gallery. They're in Antwerp, Belgium. So we went to visit them in Antwerp, just trying to figure out, okay, look, we still need practice on red clay. If you go home, you kind of take two big tournaments out. So, because you have three masters there. You have Madrid, Rome, and,
Monte
or is it
Carlo.
only two then? Oh yeah,
No,
Monte
Monte
Carlo as
Carlo.
well. That's the third. So you don't want to be skipping these big events. So you want to try to put yourself in position to do the best you can. So because if you make any run in these clay court tournaments as an American, and then you can back that up with a decent grass court and hard court summer, you've really set up your year.
Great. And I've two more Riley questions before we go on to what you're up to right now. But first Riley question is, what have you learned from Riley?
I think probably how to handle losses. I think that's one thing. Um, but I think the other thing too is just how different every player can be. One of the things for him is the way we've learned to handle things for him is most players, you got to be as professional as you can when you get to tournaments. You block outside distractions. You kind of block the social life, because especially when you travel, you can have friends all over the world. There's a lot of different things you can do in different cities, and you try to minimize those things and maintain your energy. And with Reilly, it's actually the opposite. As long as Reilly gets his gym work done, his practices in, I mean, it's amazing. I remember we went to Tokyo, and he's like, "Hey, let's go to a museum. Let's practice early in the morning because we're already up early because of the time change. So we practice at 9 a.m. when no one was there. Get our practice in. We spent all day just walking around Tokyo, but that was better for him because if not, it's just too much tennis all day long. Tennis, tennis, tennis. You sit in the hotel room or watch more tennis matches. There's no break, and these guys already play tennis for a living. It's so for him, it's actually okay to do more things outside of the tennis. Last year in New York at the US Open, he made his first fourth round in a slam. He stayed farther away than anybody. He didn't choose to stay at the tournament hotel. I mean, he stayed about 40 minutes away, I think, without traffic. But because he wanted to stay at a part of the city where, for the first time, they're kind of easing up some COVID restrictions. And traveling during COVID was pretty tough. So, especially on someone who wants to have some sort of social life and distraction from tennis. So he stayed farther away, and we're like, there were days where it took him an hour to get to the tennis courts. He didn't care. He didn't care sitting in that car all day long because he got to go to some of the restaurants he liked to go to. He got to see some parts of the city he liked. He saw some of the friends that he wanted to see. And that was good for him. So it really just taught me, like, you have to be careful implementing your own ways as a coach and forcing a player to conform to you. We have to learn what works best for each player, especially when they already have a certain level of tennis, that they already know how to play the game, and see what works for them and just try to structure things in a manner that helps them. And every player is different that way.
True. I think it's also what's important is the player really knows themselves well and they know what can benefit them the most.
Yeah, and that takes trial and error. And I think that's where if you can take a long-term view at everything, and you're not panicking about trying to, today's the day we get to number one in the world. And if you lose, it's all over. It's just every day is a learning experience. And if it doesn't work out, we just learn from it. And we try to do better next time. I think the one time we did one trip to Europe where we felt like we didn't schedule it the right way. It was what it was. We just said, okay, next year, we weren't happy with the result at that time, but we just said, okay, next year we're just going to do it differently. And we did. And that's it. And you're always just trying to learn. And if you lose, the most important thing is, did you have good intentions? Did you try to do what you think was best? And that's all you can do. And you have to live with what happens. But you got to learn. You got to learn and you got to adjust. And that's the most important thing.
And my second question was, you said that Reilly had upped his gym work, training game towards the end of 2021 in preparation for 2022. What changed? What did he up, and what was he looking to do? Obviously, to get stronger, faster, leaner, fitter.
Everything. So when he first started playing pro, I think his pro career was held back when he was young, 18, 19, because he had a lot of injuries. So foot injuries and back injuries, and so it was just hard for him to make big jumps. But then, one of the things that I have to give Reilly huge credit for is, at the end of the day, he always tries to do what's best to put himself in a position to get better and to improve his career. And so every time he just kept finding out that more fitness, better stuff in the gym, more stuff with the physio, his body was getting better. And so body getting better, he was in less pain, he was a happier person, having more success on the court. And just obviously, it's not a straight line up where you just woke up one day. It's just you just try to add things in, and every time we kept adding things in, it was getting better. And then, at the end of 2020, I mean, he was struggling with some knee problems, so he added more things to his workouts, more things to his warm ups, and his knee started getting better. His back was getting better, and he was just starting to be happier in general because he was feeling physically better on a day-by-day basis, just even walking around. So tennis became easier for him. He wasn't in pain. He could actually play and not focus on just not getting hurt. He could just focus on the match, and it became more enjoyable for him. So he just made another jump in towards the last couple of months of last year. I mean, he just said, he was getting to the close where, getting a little mentally tired at the end of the year, as any player does. He's like, look, I don't care what my results are. I'm just going to go to the gym as much as I can. I'm going to be the strongest person I can be so that next year I never get hurt, ever. And I think, and there were days where the last couple of weeks, I think first round Antwerp, first round Vienna, and then second round Paris. I don't know if he took more than one day off in the gym the entire trip. Every single day, like even after a loss, or I'm like, hey, Reilly, today should be a day off. We've been doing something 16 days in a row. Take a break. He's like, nope, going to the gym. I'm going to the gym. He's like, I don't care. I am not going to be hurt next year. I'm just like, Reilly, come on. He's like, no, I'm going to be fitter. I'm going to be stronger. And I think that's a huge credit to when you watch him play this year is how many longer points he's having. He's willing to stay in points longer. He's not just bailing out, because before, when he would play one match or two like that, it'd be really hard for him to get up to play the next one. So we had to be careful with how he managed, with what the strategy for that match was. Now he's not afraid of grinding out a 2-set match in 2 hours, if that's what it takes, because he can come back the next day and he's ready to play. So a huge credit to him with what he's done, not just last couple of years, but also the last couple of months of last year. Even when the results weren't perfect, he was still thinking about next year, my career, longer term, and he kept working.
Very good, very good. And moving on now from Reilly onto your own career. I know you've had a little baby. I'm not sure if it's a boy or a girl.
Boy.
A little boy. What's his name?
Sevi.
Sevi. Like
Sevi.
Sevi Ballesteros. Sevi.
Yes. That's the one. Yeah.
And so obviously your life has changed. You probably have to stick around at home a lot more now. You're not on the road working with Reilly at the moment, so that comes with its own challenges. So how are you paying the bills these days?
Yeah, so I, decided this year that I want to be at home. I want to be a dad. I actually still am going to do just a couple weeks. I'll be in Houston with Reilly, giving it a test run to see, what life is like traveling as a dad, how it is in a family. But so yeah, to figure out what I'm going to do this year, I started a online coaching website, but I consider it to be the most personalized online coaching website you can find, because there's a lot of stuff with drills and individual techniques and individual drills to help a player, but I didn't really see anything, that's what I had to do with Reilly. My specialty, the most important thing I did at tournaments was getting a player ready to play a tournament and scouting opponents and rewatching their matches and seeing what we need to work on. And I found that, at least in this country, I don't know what it's like in Ireland or around the world, but coaches don't go to tournaments here. They do their private lessons and they leave. And they do their clinics and that's it. Very few players have coaches consistently showing up to their tournaments. And so a lot of players are struggling and dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety in matches because they have no awareness of what's going on, and no one's telling them really what to do because, well, they're not there to see what they're doing wrong. So I created this website where kids can send me matches, and even adults. I do have one adult I work with, but you can send me matches from anywhere you are in the world, and I start to see what's going on, what we need to work on. And the more matches I watch, the more I get an idea of what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then I start putting together a development plan for the player to just help them get to their goal. With most of these players want to play college, and if they can play pro, they'd love to play pro. But a lot of this is based on just trying to get to college. So, I help them do tournament scheduling, because tournament scheduling there's a process behind it. You don't just wake up and, there's this idea of just play 2 tournaments a month and that's it. Well, it's not that simple. I mean, there's a rhythm to playing matches and tournaments and a workup, and you want to play some warm-up tournaments for the bigger events. You don't just show up and not having played a tournament in 3 weeks and say, well, this is my first tournament of the month and it's the biggest tournament of the year. Like, no, you can't expect yourself to be ready to play. So that's what I do. I try to help players. I base everything off of a coach has to watch you play your tournament matches. We do that at the professional level. We do it at the collegiate level. And it's actually done in every other sport in the entire world. And that's why I was so shocked that it wasn't happening in the junior tennis world in this country, because it's everywhere else. So, of course, kids are going to struggle to move up if no one's coaching them during the time that they compete. Now, I know there's no coaching during a tennis match, but it still needs to be watched and dissected. And then, so that's what I've been doing. I base it all off, I got to watch your match, and then we can see, where to take your development plan.
Nice. Obviously there's a limit to how many matches you can actually watch. How do you like a 2 hour match? Does it take 2 hours to watch, or is it sped up? I know there's apps such as Swing Vision now who cut out all the blank spaces. Let's say they only show you the points. So is that what you use, or how do you speed up that process?
So I work with a company called Tennis Analytics. So Tennis Analytics does the majority of the analytics for the professional players. So we use them when I was working with Reilly. So they use Dartfish as a platform, and the videos uploaded to them, they cut out all the dead time in between, all the walking. But not only that, they give me a lot of stats, because that's one of the things that I was really looking for is based with their stats. I put together an analytics report, and I get to track, are things improving or are they not? Because what I wanted to remove was the opinion of the parent or the player. And sometimes, and I want to remove my opinion as well, because maybe they're just losing trust in me because he lost a couple matches. But then I can pinpoint the data and say, look, I've asked you to work on this for the last couple months. It's not getting better. Why not? Why are you still playing this way? We need to change. And then once you have the data to back things up, it makes things a lot clearer. So yeah, I can watch a match without all that dead time. I mean, so a 2 hour match could be a 45-minute match. But then also what's great about it is it's so much easier for the player to rewatch themselves. I mean, players need to watch themselves play. I mean, that's how they learn. So, but I get for a kid who goes to school or is training all day and all this, that it's hard to sit there and watch a 2 hour match. I understand that a kid might not have that much free time. So, but a 45-minute match might be easier. So, or
Yeah.
at least to watch the first set one day and
Well,
the second set the next day.
I've spoken to a few people, a good few people at Swing Vision, and the one feature they all love, they may not use any other feature, it's the dead time killer feature it has, where it cuts out all the dead time. You quickly rewatch it, and coaches, players, they absolutely love that. So, I think you hit the nail on the head there with that, and also too with how important it is for players to, even if you don't have somebody like you, a coach like you, somebody overlooking, to watch your own tennis and see it. You see you see the truth when you watch yourself play.
Yeah, I mean, look, if professional players who know more than any other junior tennis player on the planet still have coaches with them watching their matches, guiding them through it, and rewatching it with them, why wouldn't a junior player? Right? It doesn't make sense. So, because when you're in the moment, you're so emotionally charged up, like you think but then I found myself, even as a coach, there's so many times, and I actually learned this a lot with Reilly, is I stopped saying too much as soon as a match finished, because you're never at a perfect angle. Things happen very fast, and our own emotions are involved when we're watching. Not only the player playing, but so we get emotionally clouded. So I was even catching myself thinking that what I saw was one thing, and then I go watch the match, I go look at the stats, and I'm like, I was totally wrong. Thank God I didn't say that, because I'd look like an idiot to Reilly. And when you start saying the wrong things to a player enough times, you're done. They're going to lose their trust in you. So
Fire.
I learned to just, if I wasn't 1,000% sure, I'd just be like, look, Reilly, I'm just not quite sure. Let me watch the tape. I'll get back to you tonight or tomorrow morning. So it's so important to watch. Gosh, when you remove the emotion and you sit there in a quiet room and you can watch it with clarity and you can press pause and rewind and back and forth in slow motion, it changes everything, makes everything so much clearer.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice there. And my final question, JY, is who is your GOAT?
Oh man, okay. I guess you're asking GOAT, so not favorite player. So, I mean, look, GOAT still goes to Nadal. I do think he's earned it. You know, obviously it was Federer at first. They're each different. I'll try to keep it short, but Federer, what he's done for the game, not just winning, but to grow the game, the popularity, bring fans in. Nadal as well adding to it, but now he's won the most slams. So you have to say he's the best player ever. I do think at the end of the day, this is just an opinion. I could be wrong. I think Djokovic will end up with the most slams ever. I think we'll get back to a point where he can play normally everywhere. I think that's how it's going to end up. Nadal's the GOAT for right now. Fed's my favorite. I think Djokovic will end up taking it all, and we'll see how it ends up. It's going to be a fun finish.
And who's the most promising player you think you would have any chance whatsoever of eclipsing these guys? Is there anybody out there right now?
I think that part is impossible to say. Because what's so hard, I always ask this question, like for Nadal, right? How do you still have the desire after winning 12 French Opens to come back and win another one? That's just something you can't see in a player. I think that's something you can't teach. And every time someone wants to compare it, I'm like, we're talking about 22 Grand Slams now. The amount of money that needs to be in that bank account, the amount of time that needs to be invested is going to be unmatched by anyone in human history. So to say that I think I know a player that's going to be able to put all that aside and keep playing till they're 40 years old, and I honestly don't know. I don't think I know we said it with Sampras, but I really don't know. I mean, Medvedev's on an absolute tear. I wonder if he's just once, but these guys keep playing. Nadal, Djokovic, they're still playing. So I really don't know. I don't know. But what's great is what Djokovic and these guys have all done is they're forcing the young guys to be complete players. You have to be a complete player now. You can't just be one-dimensional anymore and win a slam. You have to be able to win in so many different ways. And you're seeing that with Medvedev, how he's learning to come to the net more. He's learning to hit more drop shots. He's finding different ways to win. So we'll see. I really don't know. I hope my answer doesn't stink there, but
No, not
that's
at
how
all.
I feel.
Tough to answer. All right. Well, thank you very much, JY. It's great hearing your story and hope to catch up in the future at some stage.
Fabio, thanks for having me on. I always love talking tennis, so thanks, man.
Hope you enjoyed that chat. Great hearing JY's story. We all can't be top 100, top 50 players, and it's great to hear, how other players have been living life after their tennis days and how they still stay involved and love the game of tennis. I'll be back next week, and until then, thank you very much for listening. And if you find the episode enjoyable, please share it to your tennis community. I'd really appreciate that. Bye.